The wise woman tradition of herbal medicine is so important in these tough economic times that we're in. It is a medicine that helps us stay healthy. It's preventative medicine. It is cost effective medicine, and it's self reliant medicine. Sometimes people say to me, "Aren't you thrilled that doctors are now using herbs?" And I say, well, it's not that I'm not thrilled, but doctors tend to use herbs as though they were drugs. What really thrills me is when I see a 3-year-old pick a plantain leaf, chew up that plantain leaf, and put it on their owie. How's that for self reliance? When we become friends with the plants that grow around us, when we are drinking nourishing herbal infusions on a daily basis, and when we know how easy it is to make our own remedies, then we feel more self reliant. There's something about shaky economics that makes me feel a little shaky inside when I open my door and I see all of my friends dandelion and plantain, comfrey and yellow dock, stinging nettle and chickweed, when I see their smiling faces growing in the cracks between my sidewalk, growing between my planted rows in the garden, then I know deep down inside that no economic crisis can take away my health or my ability to stay healthy or to counter any problem that I might have. That sense of self reliance itself makes me feel a lot healthier. I was teaching a class once, and I was talking about drinking nourishing herbal infusions and learning just a couple of plants, wild plants, that can be put in our salads. And there was a woman in the class who was an MD, and she said, "You know, Susan, I think you're living in a fantasy. I don't think that the people that I see, who are mostly welfare moms and people who are working, really low paid jobs, I don't think that they're going to be at all interested in this. They just want to come and get their antibiotics and get their remedies. They don't really, have the time or the interest in this." And another woman on the other side of the room raised her hand, and when I acknowledged her, she stood up and she looked right at the MD and she said, "I am a welfare mother, and I have 4 children under the age of 10. She says, "We go out every day to pick plants for our salad. I can't tell you how self-reliant my children feel that they know that the earth offers them food and nourishment, and that they can identify plants that grow all over North America that they can use for their food and their well-being." She said, "Since we started drinking nourishing herbal infusions, I haven't been to an MD once. Maybe," she said to this woman, she said, "maybe the people you see aren't interested, but that doesn't mean that no welfare mother is interested." So there's room in the world for everyone and lots of different decisions. But if you're feeling a little shaky in these economic times, here's one way to be more self-reliant, to take the power of your own health back into your hands. Many mothers have said to me, "I have such a fight with my children trying to get them to eat anything green or any vegetables at all." And what I uniformly say to these mothers is, plant a garden, even if it's a tiny, tiny garden, and let the weeds take over. Then go with your children to your garden and start harvesting the edible weeds. Most of these mothers call back and say, "I can't keep my child out of the garden. They go out there all the time. They're munching on the dandelion leaves. They're eating the chickweed. They're plucking the red clover blossoms and eating them. They even helped me make some pine needle vinegar." Yes, indeed. We can take some pine needles from any pine tree at any time, although white pine tastes the best. Stuff a jar full of those pine needles, pour pasteurized apple cider vinegar over it, put a non-metal lid on it, wait 6 weeks, and you have what I call domestic balsamic vinegar. It's loaded with lots of antioxidants to help prevent colds and flus. As a matter of fact, white pine is one of the world's leading remedies against colds and flus. There's so many ways to be self-reliant when the herbs that give us health and the herbs that return our health to us become our friends. How do you start? Well, I mentioned 3-year-olds using plantain. It's a very easy herb to identify, and it's not a banana. It's a big broadleaf plant, and as a matter of fact, you can't see it, but I'm sitting in a big patch of plantain here. Just about anywhere that you sit in a lawn or in a driveway, you will, in fact, probably be sitting among some plantain. I was visiting my aunt, and she said, "You know, it's interesting to me that you have this interest in herbal medicine because my grandmother had that same interest." She said, "When I was a little girl, I was running by the lake shore and I came down on a broken Coke bottle, and that broken Coke bottle pierced right through my foot. You know what my grandmother did? She went and she got some pig's ear and she put it on there." Well, I was a little taken aback. I couldn't quite imagine that she put a raw pig's ear on my aunt's foot. And I said to her, "A real pig's ear?" And she laughed at me and said, "No, no, not a real pig's ear, the plant pig's ear." Well, I was scratching my head because I don't know of any plant called pig's ear. And I said to her, "Could you show me this plant?" She said, "Well, I don't know. That was in Ohio, and here we are in California, but let's look." We went out to her lawn in Southern California, and there was pig's ear, plantain, one of the best herbs for healing any kind of wound. I was at a party the other night, and one of the men there was standing by the grill, and he was grilling things, but in between grills, he'd reach around and he'd scratch the back of his leg, and he'd grill, and he'd scratch, and I said to him, "Did you get bitten by something?" He said, "Yes, I don't know what it was, but oh, how does it ever itch?" I just walked down from the deck out into the lawn, and sure enough, I found a nice big plantain leaf. I brought it back up and gave it to him and said, "Chew this up and put it on that insect bite that itches." Well, it wasn't 2 minutes later that he came looking for me and said, "Show me that plant. I need to know about that plant." He said, "It's not itching. It's not itching at all. I can't believe it." I said, "Yeah, stops itching, heals wounds, stops bleeding, and stops the pain of wounds too. Isn't it wonderful to feel self-reliant? You don't have to go to a drugstore and buy something." I said it works on dogs too, if you got a dog, and I knew that he did. If you got a dog, gets a flea bite, and starts to gnaw at that flea bite, as a dog will. Dogs can even gnaw a hole in themselves from a flea bite. I said, you chew up the plantain, put it on your dog's flea bite, or even on that hot spot where the dog is, and you'll see the dog will feel much better. Just one example of the many, many green blessings that surround us all. Wise woman, herbal medicine. It's self-reliant medicine. Even a 3-year-old can recognize and use plantain.